Detroit and the world. Welcome to a very special election watch party episode of Authentically Detroit, broadcasting live from the Stoudemire Wellness Hub here on the Lower East Side of Detroit, sponsored by the Ford Foundation, a partner to BridgeDetroit.com. This event is sponsored in part with the Lower East Side Action Plan Coalition and East Side Community Network. I'm Orlando Bailey.
And I'm Donna Davidson.
Thank you for listening in and supporting our efforts to build an authentic platform for real voices for real people on the East Side of Detroit. We want you to like, rate, and subscribe to our podcast on all platforms. We drop a new episode every week, so be sure to turn on those notifications. Today, we will be having a series of guests, candidates, community members, as well as already folks who are elected to come and talk about Election Day 313. That's right. Today is Election Day in the city of Detroit, and our very first guest is a man who hopes to be running Detroit elections in the upcoming future. Hopefully after today, he's hoping, I'm sure. Denzel McCampbell, candidate for city clerk. Welcome to Authentically Detroit.
Thank you for having me. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
How is it going, Denzel?
It's going well. You know, the polling location started out a little bit slow, but they picked up. And
what do you mean it started off slow? What you talking about?
You know, it was a little dark when the polling locations opened, so I think folks were a little slower to get out of bed until the sun came out. But what I'll tell you, what we saw, folks were ready. Folks recognized the campaign. They were ready for change. And across the city, I've been on the west side, far west, on the east side, and downtown in Southwest Detroit. Folks are ready for change. And what I really want to make sure that folks know who are watching right now is that please, you still have time to get out and vote. Polls are open until 8 p.m. If you have your absentee ballot, if it's sitting on your table right now, run home, get it, take it to your drop box so you can get in by 8 p.m. But
don't mail it. Take it to the drop box.
Yeah, yes. You know, I read a really challenging quote, challenging for me, recently, by the hopefully outgoing clerk. She anticipated, I think, less than 20% voter turnout. And I just wonder what her job was, because she sounded like me, guessing what the voter turnout was. Is it the clerk's job to pontificate on voter turnout or to drive voter turnout? What would you suggest?
To help drive voter turnout. You know, when you hear 15 to 20%, what I'll tell you is that there are neighboring communities who had over 20% turnout in August. We have 14.3% turnout in the city of Detroit. So instead of getting on TV and saying, it's going to be low turnout, this was the same thing that happened when the drop boxes were taken up in the August primary. She said, there's going to be low turnout, so we're going to take up half the drop boxes. It should be the job of the city clerk to encourage turnout, to be out here doing things that we know would get people out, to be meeting people where they are, and that's what I've been telling Detroit voters for the last several months, and what we need to do and what we need to have out of the city clerk's office.
So while you've been zigzagging the city all day, I'm sure that you've run into so many Detroiters and so many people who are voting. If I know you, I know that you've asked them about their voting experience today. What are you hearing on the ground?
You know, people are just very surprised to see not many of their neighbors out at the polling locations. I think one thing that folks have told me is that, and we've heard this throughout also with the voting experience, that they didn't have a lot of information about this election. You had a lot of folks hold on to their absentee ballots because they didn't know about the proposals. So I think what we're seeing in this election is, hopefully we get an uptick in turnout in these last close to 2 hours. But what we heard a lot about is the lack of the education, especially when we have 3 proposals that a lot of folks didn't get information from our city clerk's office about. I know you all have done with the...
we tried.
You've done it. Our campaign has put out things, but time and time again, people said, I even had a voter tell me, and this broke my heart. She said, I didn't know a lot about these proposals, and I almost didn't vote because I thought I couldn't turn in a blank ballot. So even those things, because of the lack of education, is driving down turnout, and we can't have that.
Right. I did vote, but I didn't vote today. I voted a month ago. I wanted to make sure that ballot tracks told me it was in. So I know I've been counted, but I think that we also have no way of knowing whether or not people were taking their ballots and putting them in those boxes, right? So it's very possible that there's people who did not show up in the polling place and that those numbers don't matter, because when you're at the polling place and you're number 9, that's number 9 who showed up in person, not
Absolutely.
number 9 who voted in that precinct. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
Absolutely. So when you get your absentee ballot, you're going to have, it's going to be a AVCB, which is Absentee Voter Counting Board. And what we have in the city of Detroit is that those precincts are put into a different precinct. Another thing that has happened, though, is that when you get your vote back, when you get the vote tally, other communities will actually have a precinct in person or E-Day vote and absentee. For some reason, the last several elections in the city of Detroit, those absentee voter counting boards have been separate. We can get that data if you're a tech person, but what we need to make sure is that that's accessible so you can see who all has voted in your precinct and how many people turned out.
So you should be able to tell that on election day?
You should be able to.
How about that? Who knew?
Who knew?
So we're going to have...
I never knew.
We're going to have a we'll have a newly seated city council coming
Absolutely.
up, right? No matter what happens, if incumbents come in, we're still going to get some new folks, right?
Yes.
And so with those new folks, we're going to be able to count votes. One of the podcasts we had a few weeks ago, maybe a couple months ago, Sonia Mays was here, and we were talking about transparency in voting and how to stop fraud from happening. This is before the latest fraud investigations took place. But when we talked about that, we talked about transparency. And I want to talk about the role of the city clerk. Can you talk about the role of the city clerk in promoting transparency? What does that look like?
The record keeper.
Absolutely. So yes, the city clerk is the record keeper of the city, but also the clerk of the city council. And what that means when we see the agendas for city council, when we see, those pages long agendas, what we're not seeing on the other hand are the minutes from city council meetings or the votes from city council meetings. The current clerk, I heard, she said, well, the city council didn't buy into it, so we didn't put the minutes and the votes online. That's the role of the city clerk. You are the clerk of the council. We have to make sure that those minutes and those votes are online, that it's accessible at a click of a button. If you don't have access to the internet, you can call down and get it, and we send it out to you. Because what that means, when you have increased transparency, you're going to have increased accountability. You're going to be able to see how these council members voted on the towing contracts that are in question, right? Or the various contracts. We know that city council agendas have 50, 60 agenda items at one time. So making sure that you can get that access to that information immediately to hold your city council person accountable is key, and it will help us root out the corruption that folks are tired of seeing in our city government.
Thank you.
All right, Denzel McCampbell, candidate for city clerk.
Right.
Thank you. And just again, 8 o'clock. Polls are open until 8 o'clock.
Say it to the camera.
I'm saying it to the camera. Polls are open until 8 o'clock, 8 p.m. If you're in line at 8 p.m., you should be able to vote. You must be allowed to vote. If you have any issues, please call 1-866-OUR-VOTE. That's the nonpartisan hotline to report any issues. And your absentee ballot, if you have them, drop them off in a drop box or the clerk's office by 8 p.m.
Where can your supporters meet you tonight? Where are you going to be at?
So we're going to be at PJ Lager House at, after the polls close, which is on East Townhall.
So after the election is over, after you get the results, and when you win, can we call you? All right, you'll pick up the phone so we can
I will pick up the
celebrate
phone.
with you.
I will return your text message. I'll come to your house.
Oh, my God.
Wow. Well, it's going to be a long night. Maybe you can just come back here, but I don't think your supporters will let you leave. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
We look forward to staying connected with you and having your continued role, because I know regardless of what happens tonight, you are still going to be the watchdog over our elections in the city of Detroit. We appreciate your partnership.
Thank you so much.
Can you guys clap it up for Denzel McCampbell, candidate for Detroit City Clerk? One of our audience members says you voted for her.
I'm going to go back to those polling locations.
You're not an audience member of the Queen. Okay.
The Queen of the East Side.
Who said that?
Miss Edythe Ford, who's going to be a guest a little later on. But we're going to keep the show rolling. Y'all clap it up. Y'all excited to be here. Let the audience know that you are here. Hey, all right. We are excited to welcome our second guest of the evening, and it's going to be a jam-packed evening. I think we got Nicole Small coming. She's a candidate for the city council at large. We got Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib joining us at 7 p.m. Candidate Latisha Johnson and candidate ML. It's going to be a lot of folks that come through here tonight. But we have the Senator Adam Hollier. Y'all give it up for Senator Adam Hollier, y'all. How you doing, brother?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm good. So how has your experience been at the polls today?
You know, I voted absentee, and I've been in Lansing all day. So
Yeah.
I dropped my ballot off with my wife's ballot yesterday. But I keep hearing folks talking about getting out and showing up and all those kind of things. But I think most people already voted, right? Like everybody in my family dropped off ballots and did those kind of things throughout the week. So I'm optimistic that turnout numbers will be higher than people are saying.
Yeah, I feel like the clerk did have a press conference, and she released a number that is escaping me right now, and it was a significant number of Detroiters that actually voted absentee. And so I think it will be a higher turnout than a primary. But of course, it's everybody's job to encourage everybody to get out and vote. So tell me about some of the concerns you have or that you want answered with this municipal election. What's top of mind for your constituents that you've been hearing about that the candidates that we are voting on today, right? The proposals that we see on the ballot today can help solve and answer.
Well, I think you're hearing a lot of questions and stuff. And I mean, I live in District 5, so there's no competition in District 5, right?
Yeah, it's just Council President Pro Tem Mary
so
Sheffield.
It's a very quiet,
It's a
election
quiet race,
time, you know,
yeah.
and you haven't seen much in the mayoral space. And so, you know, I got a Denzel sign out front. We've out knocked doors, those kind of things.
Nice.
But I think the question for a lot of people is going to be, where do we go from here as a city, right? Like, I think there are a lot of people that over the last 4 years and even 8 years have been saying they represent community or they represent people. And now we're going to see. Like, we're going to see if the people are actually as upset or concerned with the direction the city is going or not.
Yeah.
I mean, I know you guys have done a lot of reporting on the issues of home repair and things like that, how we're doing those kind of things. I think, you know, last year we spent a lot of time talking about Proposal N and getting folks out. I hear people are excited about, you know, some of those structures going down.
Yeah.
But maybe people who were upset about Proposal N who were like, hey, this ain't going to happen, are going to say it's going to be a campaign-worthy thing. But I don't hear that.
Yeah. So you and I both live in District 5, and so there was no real runoff race in District 5. But there was an at-large race that we had to vote on. And, you know, what are you hoping to see? What are you hoping to see on council?
I think that's been a really interesting thing, right? So when you look at Janae Ayers and Coleman Young, like you would have, like they came out of the primary at a pretty commanding space. And then you would have thought that with the the FBI doing whatever they did with her and Councilman Benson, that it would have made the race constrict a little bit. And I don't know that I've seen that happen, right? Like I haven't gotten...
Why do you think that is? There is a FBI probe into 2 sitting city council people, and it looks like they're going to come out all right. How does that happen?
Well, one, I think black folks in Detroit aren't mad at the FBI, right? Like I think that's, I think that's one part. But I think the other part is the person who was ostensibly in third has, also had issues with those kind of things. So I don't think there was a thing where there was this clear delineation between what has happened, and an investigation does not make someone find guilty, right?
That's true, yeah.
And I think that that's especially relevant for Detroiters because, you had Gabe Leland sitting on city council for a year and a half, 2 years under investigation.
Yeah.
And then everybody around him is getting in trouble, but he is ostensibly not. So I think there are a lot of folks who were like, is this really something, or is this just them going after the black folks and leaving the white guy alone?
Yeah. On the other hand, I think, we just talked to Denzel McCampbell, and excuse me, I was trying to arrange for food this evening.
No, food is important.
Because we promised it, and I was like, I got to deliver. But, a lot of people are concerned in another way that they want to make sure that whoever is sitting on city council is voting in their best interest and not selling their votes for pay. So you can have an equality thing where you say, well, it's not fair to get this guy because this guy didn't get gotten. But where does the issue around integrity of of elected representatives come in?
I think the issue is about the validity of the search, right? And I think this is always the issue that comes up in the black community and in Detroit is there is this tension between you wanting the police to show up, but also wondering if the mechanisms and the tools that they are using are accurate and fair, right? So when we say, hey, do we want our government to be responsive and honest? The answer is yes. But part of that is trusting that in this situation that the FBI is actually going after the bad guys and not someone who just got set up. And I think that's what the concern is.
I think, that's a concern. But sometimes the bad guy is the guy you elected or the guy who is in power and can allocate money. And so I think a lot of times what ends up happening, though, is, I don't know if you watched The Wire and saw how Senator Clay Davis got off.
I only got through season 1.
Well, if you watch it again because it's a great show, but when you look at the impact, this is not an interpersonal thing. This is not a politician versus another politician thing. This is a politician who controls how money is spent, a politician who put proposal in on the ballot, even though people said they didn't want to see it. A politician who approved the use of the dollars that are being used in the American Rescue Plan. And so when you have politicians who control billions of dollars coming through the city, should there be a higher standard where we say, we want to know, because none of these, and it happened in the midst of an election, and that is unusual for that to happen in the midst of an election. But I guess my question is, where is the standard? And if these politicians did something wrong, how do you ever get back what you lost?
I don't know that I think you asked a whole lot right there, right? So let's try it and dissect it. If I missed the part, just come back to it. Yeah. But I think I'll try and answer the end first, and then we'll circle back to the beginning. I think there is no way to get back what is lost. And as we talk about generationally, as a mid-30s elected official, there's something that we'll never get back because Kwame Kilpatrick got in trouble, right? Like, I think people are just now coming to grips with the idea that it is okay to trust
a young person
again, and you have this same situation happening again, and it's like, well, is there ever going to be a moment where you can trust that people are doing the right thing for your right interest? Right. And I think that's always the challenge, right? Because you get so many folks who are trying to do the right thing, and they're like, but look at so-and-so, and look at so-and-so, and that's always going to be an issue. But the only way that we address that is by people being cognizant and conscious of what's actually going on. So people like you who are constantly asking the question, people like you who are reporting and looking and saying, hey, well, where did the money go? How does this make sense? How do we do these kind of things? But if you're talking about, holding people accountable, that's what today is for, right? That's what elections are for. And so when we talk about things like Proposal N, there was a lot of consternation in some areas about whether or not Proposal N should even have got on the ballot. But it gets on the ballot and is voted overwhelmingly yes, right? We have a lot of folks who are like, hey, they represent X community or X constituency. They run for office and they don't come out of primaries or they don't actually represent those folks. The issues that we continue to have is, do we trust people who we put into these spaces? And for too often, the answer is no. And it's because they aren't grounded in spaces, and trust is hard to earn and easy to lose. So how do we do a better job of managing that? And part of it is by being present. The other part is by being transparent. And even more than that is by delivering. And so if your neighborhood looks better, if the community feels better, if it's growing and things are vibrant, you can trust that things are happening the way they're supposed to. But when it's not.
But that's what people say. People say, well, it looks better. The street lights are on time, and we've taken down these vacant homes, things look better. But the question for me is not how does the neighborhood look, is how are the people doing who live inside of these neighborhoods? And that's not a cosmetic answer. Our murder rates are as high as they've ever been right now. When you look at the fact that population went down and the number of murders went up these past couple of years, and we always find reasons and explanations, and we know all of the people who are killed aren't even counted as being murdered because of the way that people are able to fix statistics. So I guess the question is not, do I trust this person? Because I don't like having to trust a politician. The question for me is, do we have effective structures of democracy so that I don't have to trust you? I don't have to do that, but the transparency is built into the system. We have a whole towing scandal right now, and I didn't even know that our city council members were voting on towing contracts. I don't even understand towing, how much money is made from towing. There is so much about towing that I don't understand, other than my car got towed and I had to pay over $1,000. And, you don't want to tell people that, because it's like, ooh, this is a few years ago. And, you got to come up out that money, and it hurts every single time. And the average towing bill is really high. But we don't even understand how towing is structured to understand how to hold our politicians accountable. What do you think we can do to improve the structures of democracy before we even talk about the people?
Well, it's all about participation and knowledge. So the point that you're making about understanding the system, it's about who is engaged in these processes and developing strong processes, right? So the towing space is a notoriously difficult space. And, even when I worked, in the mayor's office in the last administration, towing was a big concern. And they were talking about these very real issues, and the towers not subject to federal investigation were like, hey, there's this big problem. And they were talking to folks, and they were saying, and the tower that was subject to this big investigation and has pled guilty to all this kind of space was like, hey, there's no problem, and things just kind of kept moving. And so when we talk about these spaces, a lot of these kind of businesses, that's what we see, because there is nobody talking about them, and there's not the institutions necessary to fix them. I mean, we have the same kind of issues at the state level, I should say, when you talk about what is the transparency and issuing of those contracts. So the more we standardize these kind of things, and the more transparency you have on them, which is why it was interesting that you were talking to Denzel about these kind of things, right? So we are one of the only communities that you can't just pull up all the records on these contracts and see them right before the city council meeting online, to see them during, to be able to reference how people are voting in real time. So all of those things matter, but even more than that, it is, what is the role of our institutions to be the check and the place where you go back and get those records? You can't do those things right now.
You want to know the question that I have, and I don't think a lot of us think about it, is the relationship and role that the legislative structure here in the city council should have with the Detroit delegation in the state house and in the state senate. How, as a state senator, how do you want to engage with local municipalities like Detroit, particularly city council?
So the city of Detroit is the majority of my district, right? So I represent about a quarter of the city of Detroit, mostly the northeast side of the city, going down into Midtown and the North End, and then down into Southwest Detroit.
It's ridiculous, these maps.
So, I mean, the current district's better than the one that they're drawing right now. But the engagement with city council is critical, right? Like I represent 9 or 10 municipalities, and it's talking to all those council members, understanding what's going on and what they need and how we need it, and coordinating on asks, right? So I spent a lot of time working with the mayor's office, because the mayor's office is like, hey, these are the things that we need, whether they're talking about funding pre-K programs or infrastructure investments or, neighborhood things. But we don't see the same level of engagement from council members in Detroit. Mm-hmm. And that's not to say that it's just a Detroit thing. That is typically the case that you see with other municipalities, whether that be Grosse Pointe or Harper Woods or Highland Park. The majority of the interaction at the state level is with the executive or city manager, because they're like, the city needs these projects. Now, I've had, depending upon the relationships with some of you, can ask and start to coordinate on some of those other things of like an individual project, right? So whether it's working on something with Councilman Benson or Councilwoman Castaneda Lopez, like those are folks who are like, hey, I got this specific issue in the area. Can we work on this thing? Yes, absolutely. We can go find some resources or ways to support those programs.
Well, one of the interesting occurrences that happened over the past couple of years is that the 13th District Congressional Office, I think it's District 6 for Raquel Castaneda Lopez, and our state senator Stephanie Chang started working together and saying, you know what, infrastructure is a federal, state, and local concern. Let's coordinate our advocacy, let's coordinate our offices so that we can work collectively to push for something. We in Detroit act like everything stops at 8 Mile. Mm-hmm. We act like we don't live inside of a state, and we don't need to coordinate with that. What is the possibility of you coordinating with your, you're represented by the 14th district, right? Are you in 13 or 14?
I have a little bit of everything. I live in the 13th. The majority of my district is in the 14th, but yeah, I've got a little bit of everybody and a little bit of everything.
What is the likelihood of you saying, listen, I'm going to coordinate with District 5, with Mary Sheffield's office. I'm going to coordinate with the whoever your state senator, you're the state senator, I'm sorry, and whoever the congressperson is that you choose so that you can be part of this network of people who are working on those issues and combining forces?
So I think a lot of those things are topical, right? So there are lots of issues where I work with Congresswoman Lawrence on. She's also on the Appropriations Committee at the federal level. And so it's common for the two of us to be making concerted asks where she's asking for a certain amount at the federal level, I'm asking for a certain amount at the state level, and that's being matched by some ask at the local level. So those kind of things do roll up and down. But the relationship that Councilwoman Castaneda Lopez and Senator Chang and Congresswoman Tlaib have is a personal relationship, right? Like they are very close, and so they work together in that more coordinated space.
But it also gives power. So moving beyond personal, professionally, we have colleagues that we, we're going to hear from a couple of our colleagues in a little while that we work with, and sometimes there's a personal relationship, but sometimes it's just professional understanding. We don't just come together when there's an issue. We are together so that anybody who comes to us knows that they can reach one of the other people in that group. And so I think it's important to have that transparency. Maybe once a year, have a meeting where everybody's at a table and your constituents have a chance to connect like that. Do you think that's something you can work on in this coming year, whoever is representing?
Absolutely. Part of it also depends on the way the districts are drawn. So the three of them also have much more district space in common. Yeah. And so it's working on all those kind of things, but I'm down.
Yeah, okay, great. Because I think that's a really important way to govern. I think the challenge for us is there was a time when Detroiters would make a shared ask of the state of Michigan, make a demand and say, you know what, we need something from you. And I don't see a lot of grassroots organizing folks making those shared demands. I'd love to see that.
Well, maybe that's just because y'all on the Lower East Side. My Upper East Side, the Northeast Side, like I'm teasing. But
I'm saying the city of Detroit, I'm saying city council, the mayor, and the state senators making shared demands on things.
I think we get a lot of those, right? So when we talk about, so like I said on the Appropriations Committee, we have a lot of those kind of funding requests. One of them that you see coming up is universal pre-K. So it's something that the mayor has made a priority. It's something that, the state reps that I work with, so like Joe Tate and I, who both sit on appropriations, are working kind of in concert on all three levels in that regard.
Yeah, I'm really talking about something different. I'm talking about changing something. I'm talking about advocacies. For example, change our tax foreclosure law. It's harming people. I'm talking about we need to have increased revenue sharing in our city, and we're going to work together on making those demands. So I think it's really challenging in an advocacy way, not just legislatively saying let's work together, but really saying, shaking the bushes and saying we really want Lansing to work differently for Detroit.
I think part of that is going to come with the majority, right? So I'm really excited about the opportunity for a Senate majority. The maps that they've drawn aren't awesome, but they do draw us a little bit closer. And when you have a gavel and control, you can do more of those kind of things, which is what you saw out of House members for those 4 years when they were in control, because they were able to leverage the relationships that they had over other parts of state to get Detroit issues done.
All right.
Well, we hate to cut it short. We love having State Senator Adam Hollier on, as you can see. We always have a ton of questions, and he always got all the answers. State Senator Adam Hollier, can y'all clap it up for him? Thank you so much for coming on. We appreciate it. Take care. All right, coming up next is a guest. Just keep on arriving. We have City Council candidate for District 4, Latisha Johnson, in the house.
Latisha.
And we are going to talk to her in a little bit about what she is seeing on the ground. I know that she is probably zigzagging her way all throughout the district today, and we are excited to talk to Latisha Johnson before the results come in. Latisha, how are you doing?
Hello. I'm doing well. I'm excited for today to finally be here, and just excited to see the numbers start rolling in.
All right. So what have you been seeing on the ground? I know you've been zigzagging the district and going to different polling locations. What's your experience been today?
Yes, definitely zigzagging throughout the entire district. The weather has been a little chilly, and so it looks like right now the numbers are fairly low. I'm hopeful, though, that that's going to translate into a large number of people who have voted absentee.
Yeah, one of the things that I just learned today in speaking to Denzel McCampbell, who was here earlier, is that there's a way to track votes, absentee votes, and same-day votes, so that voters can know how many people in each precinct have voted absentee. Were you aware of that?
I don't know of an official way of doing that. Like, I just stopped at a polling location before I came here and went to each precinct to ask them how many individuals have voted at that point. Anything more intricate than that, I'm not aware of.
So let's talk a little bit about some things that have come up in your campaign. What has been the biggest challenge for you running for city council in this in this general election?
I think just drowning out the noise that's coming from other entities, and making sure that our team stayed positive, stayed on message, focused on the work that has been done, and making sure that the voters know and understand what my platform issues are, why I decided to run, and what my ultimate goals are on city council.
Your first day on the job, if you win the seat, what are you doing? What are you tackling?
First real day on the job, after, getting to know the internal operations, is really looking at the Detroit Land Bank Authority. I've been on the ground and had enough conversations with residents throughout the city, not just in District 4, but throughout the city as it relates to a number of development agreements that are in place, and developers just not upholding their end of the agreement. And I had a situation here in District 4. I was working with a gentleman in the community and really trying to make some headway, and we could not make any inroads. And so, I think there are some serious things that need to be addressed to make sure that, number one, our residents have access to these properties and the land. But then if we do bring forth a development agreement, that the community is involved in the inner workings of that development agreement, and that we make sure we hold those developers accountable to that agreement.
It's interesting. Speaking of Detroit Land Bank Authority, I know of 2 people in different time frames who purchased or attempted to purchase land from the Detroit Land Bank Authority and couldn't. And the explanation was varied. And both of them at various times ended up confronting, seeing the mayor out in public and demanding, why can't I get it? And then they were put through the system, but really had to jump through hoops and everything. Yeah. And we're talking about a long-standing Detroit resident in this most recent incident, an African-American woman who's owned her house and has worked with excellence over the years and couldn't purchase a home. Do you think that system, there's anything city council can do to ensure that there's equity in terms of who gets to purchase the home?
Absolutely, absolutely. So we have to go back to the days when city council was responsible for selling properties within the city, right? All of our properties. And so if we say as a council body that we want the land bank to still stay in place, we can definitely amend their processes. One of my proposals has always been to make sure that Detroiters have access to properties, land and residential properties, before any investor or any speculator has access to them. And I will continue to reiterate that the federal government still does this. So when we say that we cannot give preferential treatment, there's a Good Neighbors program that the federal government currently utilizes that gives residents, owner-occupants, the ability to purchase a property for 2 weeks before an investor can even put in a bid on that property. Why can't we do that? Why can't we do that? That's how I actually bought my house.
Wow. Well, I think that the question is, sometimes it's because there's this preference for developers, especially in strategic neighborhoods. I know even in strategic neighborhoods, nonprofit corporations like ours have difficulty accessing certain properties, which makes no sense, right? You have nonprofit community developers, and you don't have that commitment. And I guess I have one question. What is the priority for you in terms of land sales? Is it maximizing the price and the income from that land sale, or maximizing equity? And can you have both?
I think you can have both. And so my number one priority is maximizing equity. We have seen that when we maximize values, property values, that we start to displace longtime Detroiters. It happens. It's happening now. And so if we put an intentional focus on making sure that residents have fair, equal access to these properties and to this land, we get occupied properties, we get land that becomes developed, and that does what? When we start to occupy our properties, values start to go up on their own. They may be more realistic than what we're seeing now, because I think the values that we're seeing today are inflated because we have so many speculators and investors that are in our market now.
Latisha, I want to ask you about the ability for various authorities here in the city of Detroit to capture revenue and reuse it in a way that they see fit and specify TIF areas and districts. And we know that that is a problem that needs to be taken up in Lansing. And we just had Senator Adam Hollier here. I want to ask you what your legislative policy agenda is for the State House and the State Senate. What are you thinking, what fights are you taking to those representatives and senators there?
So I think we really have to look at the impacts that these policies have had on our communities. We've not seen development projects that come into our city that have been beneficial for our communities, and that's where the problem is. When we just give away the house, we give it away as if our land has no value. The whole idea and the goal was to attract developers, to attract development, but we shouldn't do it to a point where we start to only see development in one area. We shouldn't do it to a point where we have our school system not receiving adequate funding.
Or the libraries.
Our libraries not receiving adequate funding, that we don't have true community benefits coming out of those programs. So it becomes extremely problematic. Now, with that being said, I would like to see more development agreements happening in our neighborhoods, not downtown, because there's a way for us to redevelop our neighborhood commercial corridors with residents from our communities so that we're focused on small businesses that are attracting talent from our neighborhoods.
Do we still need a downtown development authority?
I don't believe so, no. So, I talk a lot about when I worked for the Convention and Visitors Bureau 20 years ago when I first started. And I was a salesperson there, and it was rather difficult for us to compete with other Midwest cities, let alone other cities throughout the United States. But today, I don't believe that is still a challenge, because we've seen downtown developed the way that it has been. We do not need it, because essentially we're saying that we need to give you dollars to attract you to our downtown core. We don't. People are wanting to come to downtown Detroit and open up a business without it.
Well, it's not just giving you dollars, right? You have the tax capture. Mm-hmm. And the taxes that are captured in the Downtown Development Authority can only be reinvested in downtown. And so the rich keep on getting richer and richer and richer. And, there's a cost burden to a downtown. A downtown, you still have to have police and fire services going there, even though you have all the privatized stuff. You still have, water and other types of resources that are being invested there, and sometimes even at a premium. So when LCA is having an event, police are all over there, right? And they're taking their police presence from our neighborhoods, and or we're paying their overtime. So my question is this: what about the revenue? Is there a way for us to tap into that tax capture so that the neighborhoods can benefit from the investment we made in creating that downtown?
So that's what the community benefits agreements were really all about.
Well, not tax revenue, though.
Well, so with the
these
state
TIFs, yeah, the state, yeah.
Right. So with TIF, so like we could create a TIF in our neighborhood.
But what I'm saying
We
is
haven't.
this downtown development authority keeps getting richer, and a lot of counties in the state are saying these downtown development authorities are really sucking the life out of our communities. How do we end it? So would you commit to studying that?
Absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely.
Listen, it's been a joy to have you here.
It
Where
has.
can the people see you tonight? Where are you going to be at watching this stuff?
Tonight, we are having our watch night party at Royalty Dance Studio on
East Warren.
Otter Drive in East Warren. Yes, yes.
So if you win, you're going to answer our call tonight so we can celebrate with you?
I would love to have you there. Absolutely.
All right. Well, we'll be here until about 11, but how
Yes.
long will you be there?
We will be there until 2 o'clock. We're hoping that
All right.
the
All
race
right.
will be called by 2 o'clock.
All right. Well,
All right, y'all clap it up for
thank you
Latisha
so
Johnson,
much.
candidate for City Council in
Yes.
District 4. Give her a hand, ladies and gentlemen. And we are still rocking and rolling. We want to bring up at-large City Council candidate Nicole Small. She is a former city charter commissioner, and she agreed to come in. I know she's probably been zigzagging the city from polling location to polling location all day because she don't have a district that she's running in. She's running in the entire city. First of all, Nicole Small, we think this is your first time on Authentically Detroit. Welcome to Authentically Detroit.
Thank you for joining us.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, so what has today been like?
Oh my goodness. So didn't leave the campaign office last night until 1 o'clock, a little late. Then I was out the door by 5 a.m. this morning, and it's just been nonstop. Putting out a lot of fires. A lot of people didn't know where to go and vote. That was an issue. I will say this, we did see an uptick in a lot of people trying to support some of the seniors in their families to figure out why they didn't have an absentee ballot. Now, what should they do? And some of them have mobility issues, so it's more than a matter of just driving them to the polls. So things like that on the top of the low voter turnout, but we're hoping that people still come out until 8 o'clock.
How low is low?
Yeah.
So with all honesty and transparency, it's lower than what it was for the primary. I'm hoping that what I'm seeing and what others are seeing today is wrong, but that's a whole other issue. Like that's more than just people coming out to vote for this election, to vote for your personal candidate. You know, what that is going to do is to create a narrative and such a low standard when it comes to Detroiters and how we value what happens in our own backyard. And that's very disappointing to me.
Speaking of city clerks, I know you weren't, but our city clerk said that she expected the turnout to be very low. And I was like, girl, what's your job? You expect that?
To get
what
reelected?
are you doing to drive voter turnout? What has the city... How do you do that? I'm just like, I'm kind of in shock. Like imagine we had the U of M Michigan State game last week. Imagine, Jim Harbaugh saying, "Will I expect to lose?"
Yes.
It's like, what?
It is disappointing. I don't know. I know the spirit of Detroiters are broken, which is one of the reasons I did decide to run. But to know that we just told you the 14% was unacceptable, and I'm afraid. So originally, I'll be honest with you, I was like, well, maybe we'll get a 10% increase in the voter turnout, right? I don't know now. I mean, some of the stuff I saw was scary. We literally have 20, probably close to 30,000 outstanding absentee ballots. Like, just process that. We do see a lot of people turning in ballots today, but I don't know if it's going to be enough to cover the low voter turnout at the polls. So let's just keep our fingers crossed.
I want to ask you about voter enthusiasm. And as I've stated before, I think it's all of our jobs to encourage people to get out to vote. But mainly the politicians or the aspiring politicians who are running in the elections. And one of the things that I saw this election cycle that I have not seen in the city of Detroit before is people aren't campaigning, especially incumbents. People aren't going outside. We don't see them debating. Mm-hmm. We don't see them making public appearances. Yeah. What is that?
Yeah, it's become the new norm in the city. We have more mailbox candidates winning elections than we do those who are having direct engagement. And, you know, listen, this is 2021. This is not 2020. So let's just be honest. You see those politicians at these fundraisers for themselves. You see them out at the bar. You see them in the community when they want to do something. But when it comes to direct engagement with the voters, it's a little frustrating. They're almost invisible, right? But it's working for them. So when we have these conversations about why is that, it's because they've won by doing it. You know, what are we going to do to say that we have greater standards as a voter and as a constituent? We want you to be more engaged. And how about this? We want you to answer our questions and speak to our issues. Stop putting us on this merry-go-round. That's why they do it, though, because they're allowed to.
Yeah, well, you know, when national candidates run, there's sometimes fact checkers.
Yes.
Who will check facts. We don't have any citywide fact checkers. So I can literally say anything if I'm an incumbent and people would believe it, because if I make it sound good, and some people are really good at selling
Or say nothing.
what they're saying. I mean, but no, I'm seeing stuff and it's like, come on now. And I've heard campaign claims that I knew were wrong. And I'm trying to be on this side of the street with Orlando and not just call people out, but you hear it and it's like, that's not necessarily the truth. So what is the role and who needs to be out there? How do we begin to correct information? We are living in the age of disinformation.
Right.
And how do we correct that?
So for me, for quite some time, I have been asked to run for office. I think some people were disappointed when I decided just to run for the Charter Commission, but it was a reason for that. I really did want to work on the policies. I say that to say, for a long time, I really wanted to help create a political apparatus in the city that we used to have, right? When you had people who were leaders at the table and they were influencers, but they shared information and knowledge, and so you always had those point persons all across the city to disseminate that information, right? And they would fact check it too, because, you know, you had Mama so-and-so in the community would be like, because I remember when such and such happened, and they knew the order and the process. That has kind of gone to the wayside. So now we have people who are great sellers, as you said. I don't know if we can have as many fact checkers when you have such a distrust in leadership.
Support your local newsrooms.
But it's also a mistrust in news, like as Orlando was getting at, because the fact checking a lot of times comes from the news. And I have another question. What happened to polling? I have seen no polling data for anything now.
Yes, you have. Do you know what the sample size that they're using for polling, like I know in that large, is 400 and something people. So we have 500,000 registered voters. You poll 400 and something people and dictate the outcome of a citywide race. Like,
there's a science behind
those,
it.
how does that work?
No, there's still a science.
Where were those poll numbers shared?
So I know Ed Sarpolis did a couple for the Black Slate, state Black Slate caucus. And there was another one that was out, poll someone. But
I know that was for the primary. I haven't seen anything for the
no,
general.
it was two supposedly that were done for at large. And that was the sample size, was 400 and something people. And I'm thinking that this is laughable. But let's just be honest. We don't have the strength in our communities that we used to have, which actually came from the people in the community. What you guys do here is coalition building, right? So you bring together different communities on this side of the city, and you say, listen, what do you need in this community? What do you need in this community? Well, kind of try to direct people to where the resources are, and you do some research. Okay, that's for here. Really, we need that straight across the board. So then people wouldn't just be able to sell us a bill of goods. I mean, I agree with you. I listened to some of the people running for city council, and I'm like, well, are you really running for city council? Because you can't do these things as a role of a council person, or you're really selling people a pill, because even if you get elected, you can't do these things, right? So where is our guide? Where is our toolkit to tell us, okay, this is what your expectation should be from this person running for city council. This should be your expectation for someone running for clerk, running for governor, running for state rep. We need that. We need civic education in a community.
Yeah, and I think we need to provide amplification and platform for the local community development organizations that are doing that work, the small newsrooms that are not the Free Press and the Detroit News and so on. But I want to ask you this question. We got a little bit of time left with you before the Congresswoman gets on. Let's say you make it to the table. What's number one on your agenda?
We need a forensic audit. I need to find out where the money went, to be honest with you. There's a lot of conversations about, for me, the dollars, the revenue, the resources and opportunities that come into the city of Detroit. And I just get increasingly frustrated to see that even though they are allocated for us, right? When it comes time for appropriations and approval of appropriations, like directly who they're gonna go to, then they don't make it to us. And I'm really tired of this crabs in the barrel type of attitude and approach, right? So now we all have to fight when really and truly, like when there's almost $1 billion on the table, we can find some solutions for affordable housing. We can find some solutions for this flooding problem. We can find solutions, to provide real relief in an authentic way with an extra almost $1 billion on the table. And so for me, it's about that, digging deep to see where the dollars have gone so that as those people come back to the table, I could say no, because you know what? You've already been afforded this opportunity to take from the people who were in need, and also to be able to renegotiate some terms for some future dollars that are coming in.
So can I just ask a follow-up to the forensic audit question? Is the forensic audit of budget expenditures that include grants?
Yes, and stimulus dollars.
And stimulus, okay, gotcha, go ahead.
So the city has spent at least $16 million on contracts to administer this $800 million in ARPA funding, right?
Yes.
826 million. There's 16 million allocated for that. Am I correct?
No, a little bit more. So the range was 7 point something to 10%. So we could be looking at closer to like $60 million possibly.
But I've looked at contracts.
That's
for
what
that
they've
amount.
Dispersed, approved already. Yes, you're correct.
And the city is planning to spend, now you're saying 10%, but the city is planning to spend $30 million on home repair. Yes. So I'm trying to ask you.
$50 million on the Riverwalk, though. How does that work out? $50 million.
Well, we have to have some place to walk.
Well, because we asked for regional transit and we're just going to get a 27-mile walking trail because that's really what we wanted. Because, Detroit is the most fit city in the entire country. We walk 27 miles.
Yeah. Donna and Nicole so shady. They shady. Love
because
that 3-mile choo-choo train on Woodward really wasn't doing it for you. So
she said choo-choo train.
Because I think that it is almost laughable, right? It is laughable that we cannot spend more money on home repair.
Yes.
It's laughable. It's not funny. I think the statistic is 33,750 homes, something like that, are in need of are dangerously in bad repair right now. I don't remember the exact statistic.
But what would happen if we
it's
put
somewhere
more
like
money?
that. And this $30 million will repair the roofs on about 1,500 homes. If you are saying this is renewing Detroit, at what pace?
But who is the city to tell you that this money for home repair is only supposed to go to your roof? Can we get to that part? I know some people who are supposed to have 4 steps and they only have 1 existing. Maybe you need insulation blown because DTE is quite expensive in the city of Detroit.
It's the prioritization of the mirror. While we got a little bit of time, Toni McILwain, a legend on the East Side, I want you to step up to the mic because you had a comment that we wanted people to hear.
Our legends
the president of Ravendale Community Association. Y'all clap it up for Toni McILwain. Toni, go ahead with your comment.
I've been keeping up with that home repair.
Yes.
1,500 homes.
Right.
What can you do with $30 million when you have 1,500 homes that need more than a roof? And the saddest thing about it, what impact is the 1,500 homes going to have against the other homes that are there? It's apathy out there. The people are feeling as though why is the voter turnout low? Ask the person that did not vote why they did not vote. They don't feel that their vote is counted.
Right.
For one thing, they're not involved in the process of changing their own environment. They have to be involved in that process to feel that they're a part of it. See, we want to use the term grassroots. I want you to look up grassroots. What does it mean? It means to nurture, to love, to give something to make it mature. We don't do that. And the people are literally stuck in their homes, feeling so bad that they can't even express themselves, even though they don't use the verbs and the adjectives where they're supposed to be used, but the heart is so heavy in the city of Detroit, of the people in the community. They have to feel that they're involved in the process, and they're not.
Right. Well, I mean,
That's
now you see why she's a legend, because make it plain, Miss McILwain.
Nicole, can you respond to that?
Yeah, but how many of them even really know? How many people really knew that we had $92 million on the table last year in CARES Act money that had to be spent by December the 31st, and the city only gave out an email address? And we're talking about economic stimulus dollars. Like, when you hear economic stimulus, somebody here is supposed to get some money. You didn't even know about it. And the city is allowed to turn around and say that they gave out $1,200 stipends, $1,600 if you were married and have a family. Like, I've gone all across the city. I don't know anyone who received that from the city. You know, your federal stimulus is something different. Then to have $860 million is actually what they said we were receiving, the 5th largest part of money for the ARPA dollars this year. But by the time it made it to the table, it was only 826. No one accounted for that loss of that $40 million. How do we allow that? So I'm saying that to say, we did submit a proposal, right? We asked for $200 million in home repair, at least, out of this almost $1 billion, because there's another $180 million that we received just for neighborhood improvement. No one talks about it. No one talks about it. A lot of our people don't even know, and I agree with you. The spirit of so many Detroiters are broken, and that's sad.
And before that, we had emergency management. Then we had bankruptcy, emergency management over our schools, bankruptcy, EAA schools, just a complete takeover of our community and dismantling of Black power. Mm-hmm. And then when you dismantle the power base, sometimes people feel like, why bother? The other thing is $30 million sounds like a lot of money to me, okay?
Yes.
I will never in my lifetime touch $30 million. When you throw those numbers out, a lot of people are like, whoa, that's a lot of money, because we're not giving context around what those dollars look like. When the city is saying, oh, we got the largest housing development investment from the federal government HUD, and how many years? It was something like $33 million for a project in Corktown. And that sounds wonderful. When the city is saying, look, we redid these apartments and we didn't even increase the rents. Not even acknowledging the fact that you couldn't because it's affordable housing and there are rent stipulations on there. But it sounds good. We are misinforming people and we're throwing numbers at people without context. So I have this question for you. We're hopeful about the outcome of tonight.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
When you make it to city council, will you work with us to build that citywide coalition?
Absolutely. Not only will I work with you, I'm being honest with you. We know what happened. We really are supposed to be back in session in person, and the mayor kind of cut that out. We know why he doesn't want city council in person, but that's another story. For me, you know, I'm ready to open the doors. You know, after being sworn in January, I really and truly, I want to work in the office. I want to open up the doors to the community. We have to get back to coming together and building relationships, but also coming together for solutions. The same experiences that you have over here, trust me, they have it over there in District 1, District 7, District 6,
Absolutely.
and everywhere else, and there's strength in numbers.
There's one city of Detroit.
That's right.
And we work in one part of it. But I have another question.
Yes.
Okay?
And we got the
If
Congresswoman
we're
online.
not successful, will you work to build that coalition so you will be successful next time?
I already have a plan for
All right.
it.
Can we clap it up for Nicole?
Thank you.
Smoke? Thank you so much for coming by, Nicole. We have Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib joining us via Zoom.
Yay.
Hopefully the Zoom The Zoom works. Congresswoman, can you hear us?
Yes, I can, loud and clear. Hello, everyone. Hello to my home district.
Everybody say hello to Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib. She's in D.C. and she has been in chamber all day voting on various things. Congresswoman Tlaib, we want to ask you about today's municipal elections. We know that you've probably already submitted your vote, but from your vantage point in the 13th Congressional District and what you've been hearing from your residents, what is at stake for Detroiters in this election?
Well, I think there's so much at stake. I think when you look at right now the tremendous amount of struggling families, I mean, if the pandemic did anything, it exposed just how little of a safety net we have for our families in the district, from those that are facing problems paying their rent to those that are facing problems with water shutoff and so much more. It is definitely the kind of challenges that we face as a day-to-day as families and residents. All of that, I think at the local level hasn't truly been addressed. It's been very hard for my residents to get access to the same resources that corporations and larger businesses have. They've been able to get to the table with the mayor, get to the table with city council members in a way that has been meaningful for them, but there is no pathway for my residents to be engaged in a meaningful way that changes their lives and creates those safety nets. We have to increase homeownership. We have to address the poor air quality we have in our community that is causing so many pre-existing conditions that are leading to higher rates of those dying of COVID in our community. And so it is all of those layers of struggles and issues that I think my residents and all of our neighbors have been expressing for so long. And again, no one seems to move with the same urgency that I think the residents require.
Congresswoman, we're going to have a new city council. There are going to be some new folks, some new blood on council. Tell us how you plan to advocate locally for residents in the 13th district with the legislative body here locally.
I mean, I think for you all to know, we got so much money from the American Rescue Plan to address some of the impacts of the pandemic. However, when we kind of turned our backs a little bit, is council then decided, we're going to go ahead and allow it to be run or managed a lot more by the mayor versus a transparent process where community groups and others can come to the table and say, hey, we need to create more stability for housing. We need mental health and youth programming for our folks, especially our young people and kids as the youngest kindergarten age who struggled with the pandemic. So Orlando, as I fight for those dollars, that fair share of resources for our city, and there's not short of it right now. A lot has come to our city that we have to hold. Yes, and we have to hold those folks accountable and making sure that it's distributed in an equitable, meaningful way. Right now, it doesn't feel like it's touched our lives. It should have by now. That's a lot of money, and our kids and our parents and our families, our working folks in our community haven't felt the positive impact it should have had when we fought so hard for that fair share of resources. So I'll continue to get our fair share of resources on a federal level, but I need their partnership on the ground to making sure they are transparent and inclusive in how this gets implemented. Because we can fight as hard as we can for the dollar amount, but if on the ground it's not equitably distributed or it's not really changing people's lives for immediately or in a meaningful way, then it's not working.
Yeah. So one of the things we talked about a little earlier was the role that your office has played in supporting local communities. You're a congresswoman who's really worked with local politicians to push change, and I really appreciate that. You were here when Fiat Chrysler was trying to expand or was in the process of expanding and really fighting for our rights as around environmental health issues, and you're still involved with that. How do you see yourself engaging with other local leaders in this fight for local power in the city of Detroit?
I mean, let me tell you how I've done it in the past. For instance, one of my local cities was considering a contract with the same folks that were running the incinerator in the city of Detroit. I cannot legally or ethically tell a council or mayor or folks how to vote. However, I can educate them, and this is a true case, where they violated the Clean Air Act, I think over 100 times.
Yeah.
I can come and tell the truth, and I can educate the public of the fact that people are not complying with federal environmental protections or public health policies, or a school district is not taking care of our special needs children or anything like that. So I can tell the truth, Donna. And to me, that helps create the kind of engagement that needs to happen on the local level to hold people accountable.
All right, Congresswoman, we got about 5 minutes left with you. One of your constituents wants to ask you a question, so we're going to have him up on the mic. You should be able to hear him. Go for it.
Hello, everybody. My name is Hakeem Weatherspoon, also known as Hakeem the People's Poet. I'm also a bankruptcy kid, so to speak. I was raised out of the city of Detroit in 2014, went to DB High School, also an EAA development school kid. When I graduated, you know, I've heard you saying like there's going to be like ways to ensure like the local community, local residents and leaders receive funds for things that they're doing throughout the community. But like, are there any systems or policies put in place to ensure that the funds will also go into the community?
Good question.
Yeah, exactly. I think, well, one of the things that we have done, and Hakeem, I'll tell you, you know how incredibly frustrating it is to me to watch the American Rescue Plan dollars pretty much get in the hands of the city administration and not be able to go through a more thoughtful process through city council. And I couldn't ethically, I'm not allowed to go to council and tell them this, that. In regards to education specifically, there are federal policies in place. There are guidelines, things that they're supposed to be in place that has to make sure that people like you, Hakeem, that are going through the system are not being left behind. And so it is getting the federal agencies, maybe Department of Education, others that have civil rights division. And by the way, I filed 60 plus cases against school districts regarding the treatment of special needs students and them not getting the wraparound services they need. It's me holding them accountable for those federal dollars that are being distributed. And this is where I need your help, Hakeem, and everyone. You all need to show up at these school board meetings, to show up at city council meetings, and tell them this is where you need to invest these dollars. Because as much money as we're going to get, and we have such a significant, over like $1 billion coming into the Detroit public school system right now, we got to make sure that it's actually getting into the hands of our kids and into classrooms and not into things that, for me, are not going to help our children thrive. And so you'll see me do my due diligence and telling on folks and showing and exposing when they're not doing it the right way.
So, Congresswoman, you endorsed Denzel McCampbell for city clerk. Tell us why.
Because I want my absentee ballot. Let's be honest. Let's be honest, Orlando. It shouldn't take me 2 or 3 times requesting my absentee ballot to get it from my city clerk's office. Nor does it take my residents finding, I think they go to 3 or 4 different polling locations until they find the right one. It shouldn't be this hard to vote in the city of Detroit. And I know Denzel understands that. He has been there answering the calls from people because he worked those hotlines where people are saying, I'm at the wrong polling location, or my polling location's not open, or, hey, I requested my ballot and I didn't get it, and it's like Saturday, y'all, and so they're not going to be able to get it by Tuesday. I mean, it's really hard. And, you know, what's so devastating is we have, Clerk and folks okay with shutting down ballot box locations or excuses that don't make any sense other than it's just going to reduce turnout for our communities. And when we have this little of a turnout, when only 6% of the folks are voting for this mayor or so forth, what we get is a handful of people making decisions that impact our lives a lot more than what federal government does. And so, Denzel McCampbell understands the importance of getting that ballot into people's hands. He understands the importance of making sure that people have every single option of knowing where they're supposed to vote, what's on the ballot, and all of those things. And that isn't happening. Denzel thinks I'm joking when I told him, I want you to win because I want my absentee ballot. When I request it, I shouldn't have to go to the Secretary of State website and request it again. I should be able to get it from my own Detroit City Clerk's office.
Congresswoman, we know you got to go. We know you still got some business to conduct on the floor, but I want to ask you about some federal legislation right now. The president is overseas at the climate summit, and Congress, the House and Senate, are hard at work trying to pass the Biden bills. So will the Congressional Progressive Caucus come around and get the things needed in the bill before voting on it? Like, is this going to come to a vote, and are you guys voting?
Yeah, so I think I want you all to know a vote will happen this week. However, the risk is that if we vote for the Manchin bill, I call it the Manchin bill because it's a senator and a handful of fossil fuel industry and lobbyists that created the so-called bipartisan infrastructure bill, which, by the way, has to relitigate the Keystone Pipeline, shut down from President Biden. Some other really awful things when it comes to our climate. And so Build Back Better agenda was, is supposed to address child care issues, health care issues, really address like what's going on the east side of Detroit with air quality, all of those things. And so we, the Progressive Caucus, are saying, look, you want to move your Manchin fossil fuel bill, fine, but you got to move Build Back Better with it. However, if we move it and they get it to the Senate like they did the Voting Rights Act, the Equality Act, the $15 minimum wage, we pass all this out of the House and it just sits there in the Senate. My fear is that if we move the Manchin bill, the bipartisan infrastructure bill they call it, they make it out like it's the most magnificent thing in the world, but it still is poisoning our, it's making our planet unlivable. Then, Orlando and Donna, everyone in the room, you should know, it risks us not being able to get Build Back Better passed. I mean, this is expansion of earned income tax credit,
right?
Making child tax credit permanent, home health care, y'all. It has another additional $9 to $10 billion for lead abatement to get lead out of our water. There's so many great things in there, and what I worry is that they're gaslighting the public and saying, yeah, pass both, but their intention is not to pass the Build Back Better out of the Senate, just the bill that they prefer.
All right, Donna, we got it for one more minute.
All right. So I want to thank you for joining us, and I also want to ask you if you will, after the election is heard, after the results are in, can we talk again this evening, or are you going to be too tired? Because we may have some questions.
No. I would love to know. Donna, I got to figure out what I'm doing on the MACC conversations, but if I'm done by talking to, because I need to talk to some of the advocates on the environmental justice community around this upcoming vote that they wanted to have on Thursday.
Just
but I'm ready to talk to you. Orlando, you text me.
Right.
I'm available.
All right, and if not, then we need you back on Authentically Detroit so we can really debrief all of this. I want to thank you.
Yeah, but Donna and Orlando, before you go, everybody who's listening, I want you to know, change is not going to happen just with who's our city council members or who's the mayor. It changes because of movement work. So you all need to build up movement work on the ground, because that's how we got the Civil Rights Act. That's how we got to be able to unionize in these factories and against corporate greed. I just want to emphasize that this is yes, getting our folks elected is a door, but it's not our destination. Our destination is to get clean air, clean water, elevating every single person living in poverty, especially our children, out of poverty. All of those things happen because of movement work on the ground. So I just want people to know that as they see these results coming in, don't feel like it's just literally a stepping stone. The fact that we're challenging the establishment in the city of Detroit alone is how we get change.
I appreciate that. And so we want to debrief it and have a longer conversation about what movement work looks like in our community.
Yes, ma'am.
Sometime soon. Thank you so much.
Can you guys clap it up for Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib? Thank you, Rashida. We'll see you soon. Yes. All right. So we are going to transition now. We still have some politicians and some special guests that are due here tonight. We are expecting Gabriela, Santiago Romero, Hector Santiago, ML Elric. But we do have some local leaders who have been working on the ground for years and years and years here, and we want to get them an opportunity to address the folks, as well as you, our guests. If there is something that you want to talk about, if there's something that you want to put into the ether, you're welcome to do so at that mic. But Toni McILwain is here, the longtime president of the Ravendale Community Association. Can you guys give her a big hand clap as she makes her way to this seat? A former ECN legend, right? Honoree.
Yes, we don't have enough room for all of these.
Come to the table, Toni McILwain.
Join us.
Yeah, come and join
Definitely
us.
a legend.
Another queen, another East Side queen.
Uh-huh.
So, Ms. McILwain,
Yes.
how satisfied are you that your elected officials understand and respond to your needs and concerns as a Detroit resident?
Well, I'm not completely satisfied. I'm going to be perfectly honest. I think that until they sit at the table and allow the residents to sit at the table at the same time on the same day, then we will find that out.
So,
I love it.
how do you expect Detroit to change in this election cycle?
Okay, well, it has to change. I mean, the stronger of the two is going to win out. Yeah, I mean, the stronger of the two is going to win out. Either it's going to change or it's not going to change. So it's going to be up to us as residents to make sure that Detroit changes. Make sure that they're on the ground running. Make sure that we're not sitting back waiting for them to make the change. We have to make the change, okay? And we have to do it with a sense of urgency. Not just sit back and wait, but we have to do it with a sense of urgency. We have to make them listen to us. We have to make them feel that we're even more important than they are. Yeah. We're more important than they are. Yeah. You know, it is time for a change. They work for us.
Yeah.
We don't work for them. That's right.
Toni McILwain, I want to ask you about, you know, with all of your decades of leadership experience in Ravendale, what's rising to the top for you in terms of things that need to be addressed, like the biggest issue that you are seeing?
let me tell you where I was a couple hours ago. I was on 11 Mile and Hoover trying to help this young lady find, she was sleeping in her car with 2 kids, could not find a place or not one shelter that would take her in. You know what they kept saying? We're full, we're full, we're full. Okay, see, it's easy to say that you're full. That's the easy part. Do something in a collaborative effort. Find a place for this girl to sleep tonight if it's putting her up in a hotel. That's what we don't have. We don't have
affordable
the collaboration as Don was talking about among the people that are supposed to be giving us what we need. We have to fight for that. That's where I was. It took me an hour and a half. I paid for her hotel room so that her kids would be out of the cold. You know, we don't have that.
You know, I've done that before.
Yes,
I know exactly
have.
what you mean, because when you're aware of the injustice,
that's right,
you feel like you have to do something. And what we see our elected officials doing is giving pittance to the problem.
That's
right.
right.
If you know that you have a $100 million problem, don't tell me about your $1 million plan.
That's right.
Because the problems don't get better on their own, right?
That's
right. So you
right.
have a mother with these children, and the mother can't take care of her children, but she's got children who will not learn or be equipped to take care of themselves at some point. The problem grows generation after generation, and then we wonder, why are these kids so bad? Why aren't they showing up in school? Why aren't they doing well in school? Because we did not invest in them. Would you agree with that?
See, we have, I agree with that, but we have failed our kids. We have failed them to the point when the young man was up there at that mic, he said, is there a system in place?
Yeah.
Is there a system in place where we would get some results? He even know that.
But can we clap him up, though? The poet, what's his name?
Hakeem.
Hakeem the poet. Listen,
The
I was
people's
so
poet.
impressed, the people's poet. I was so impressed with this brilliant young man standing there and saying I was a bankruptcy
his
kid.
congresswoman.
I was a DIMBY kid. I was an EAA kid. And yet here you stand, a strong black man making that case. So I do want to thank you for showing up today. And I really do hope that we get to hear your poetry, and it just reminds us that we are a great people. Right. And there's greatness inside of us even when you try to stop it out. But anyway, I'm sorry.
That's right. I know
you
what
brought
you
him
feel.
up, and when he was talking to the congressman, I want to stand up and give him a standing ovation.
I did too. Because he knew exactly where it was. He knew exactly where he was coming from.
Right.
He wasn't just puffing smoke. He knew exactly where he was coming from. Do we have a system in place that's going to cause the young people to receive something to help them their lives move forward? Do we have that? No, we don't.
Right.
You know, and if we had more ECNs, if we had more organizations working together to make changes, but we have to put our feet on the ground and start running in leaps and bounds.
Well, I just want to say this. We had Ravendale under your leadership, and we all stand on your shoulders. I want to thank you
Toni McILwain.
for being a partner
Thank you.
to everything that we do. And even though you're not still doing Ravendale, I know you're still doing stuff. You've
She's
got a
still
book.
doing
I don't
it.
know if you
She's
brought
still
your
doing
books
it.
for book signing, where you tell your life story, which is amazing.
No, thank you.
And you have helped us implement our programs and stay connected with the community. So we really, really appreciate you and your voice. And I've heard a couple people say today, build movements, build coalitions, and we want to know that you're going to still be here with us in this movement building on the east side of Detroit.
I will. Look, I wasn't even 40 years old. I am 74 years old now.
Somebody telling stories. Somebody up here
All
telling
I'm gonna
stories.
I'll say this, it don't crack.
Toni McILwain. Come on, Toni McILwain. Can y'all clap it up for the legend, Toni McILwain? Wow. All right, we're going to keep moving along because we still have a ton of interviews to get to. We're going to invite former State Senator Coleman Young Jr. to join us at the table. Detroit's own Coleman Young Jr., who is also a candidate for one of the at-large seats on the city council here in the city of Detroit. Y'all give him a hand as he makes his way to the table.
So, you know, it's been a minute since I've seen
I know,
you.
look at this
Coleman
man.
Young, you're looking great, okay? I just want to...
Oh, man. Coleman, we are sure that you have been zigzagging the city all day. What are you seeing on the ground?
Well, first of all, it's always great to be with you guys. How you guys doing? How you guys doing? Always a pleasure. Did everybody vote?
Yeah.
All right, make sure everybody vote. I honestly does appreciate that. You know, it's been great. It's been great. It's been a real, labor of love. You know, it's been a lot of doors knocked, a lot of people talked to, but I'm really excited. And I'm also just really thankful and blessed to be in the position I am, to just even be considered to be in a position to be a public servant and serve the people is a very humbling experience. And I just think that with everybody who lost their lives during the coronavirus, I'm just happy to be here and happy to be in this position.
We're happy to have you. Donna, I think this is his first time on the podcast. Where you been? Welcome to Authentic.
I've been trying to get on the podcast, man.
You know
I've
what?
been begging and pleading.
Oh,
whatever.
Listen, we actually are going to have to hire a scheduler because this is not our day job. We gotta pay the bills.
You could have fooled me.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate the compliment. So listen, I have a question. We have 3 proposals on the ballot today. Proposal R, E, and S. Rest, where do you stand?
Well, I support all 3 of them. I think that in terms of reparations, I think that's something that's much needed. Reparations, basically, the definition of it is to make amends for a wrong in the past, either through money or to helping the wronged party, and due to slavery. And let me say this. I think that in 1945, there was a riot in Detroit called the Belle Isle riots. And what happened is that you had there was a rumor that a black man raped a white woman and then killed her on the Belle Isle Bridge, and that a white man killed a black woman and then threw her child in the river. And so as a result, you had white supremacists. And let me make sure I say this, because I'm not saying this is all white people, because that's not true. These are just these certain people who happen to be white supremacists who were there with the aid of the police that targeted black people. And so you killed, 34 people died, 25 of them black, 600 people were in the hospital. I think for that, not limited to, but I think for that incident alone, reparations should be paid.
You know, but we have Hakeem in the audience right now, and Hakeem just told you he is a product of the EAA. Does he get reparations for the education that he did not receive and the way he deserved to receive it? Because reparations is not about 1945. Reparations is now, right?
Well, let me say it like this. I think that, well, first of all, I think that we need to pay back the money we took from DPS due to the 1999 takeover, period.
Right.
That's the first thing I think we need to do. I just want to make sure that reparations, and I want to make sure I'm clear about this, reparations from what I believe it to be is about specific harm done. And I think that not just in terms of slavery, but also in terms of discrimination. I think that could include education as a whole. I think that could include, especially in this state, because this is the state where you had Milliken v. Bradley, which basically says that segregation is legal as long as there's not a specific law stating as such. So the reason why we have the segregated schools where black children are 5 times more likely to go to segregated schools in this country and 2 times more likely to be in high poverty schools is because of that court case here in this state.
Yeah, let me ask you.
I think that's a very good thing in terms of education on the whole. I just want to make sure that it's specific to black people and their issues.
And the EAA is definitely specific to black people and their needs, because every single EAA school was an all-black school or majority black.
I just want to make sure that I just want to make sure that you get the money for EAA and you get reparations at the same time. I don't want to mix those two things. Well, I gave money to EAA, so that's the same thing as reparations. I think they're both.
Right. I'm just talking about the harm.
No, you're right about the harm.
I'm talking about the racist harm.
Right. No, you're right.
Because the takeover of Detroit public schools and the destruction and dismantling of public education in Detroit create a racist, long-standing, lifelong harm. Hakeem is here, and we're so proud of him, but there are many people who aren't and who did not recover. And I have some family members, so I get emotional when I talk about it, so excuse me, I'm not trying to overtalk, but their lives, they still don't have diplomas. They still don't have diplomas. They still don't have what they should have earned when they went to school and their parents sent them to school, and they are not the only ones. So when we look at reparations, we look at the $600 million where people are overtaxed, some of whom lost their homes. We look at the policies of emergency management that allow people to have their the water system taken over, and now people are dealing with flooding in their homes, and nobody's accountable for anything, and everybody says it's not race, but the outcomes are race. Mm-hmm. That's what they've been able to do. That's how Milliken versus Bradley got away with it. They said it's not race, but the outcomes are race. And I guess that's my question is, how do we address it so that we really look at the comprehensive harms in our community?
Well, you're talking about impact versus intent. So they'll say that the intent wasn't racist, but the impact is disproportionately, overwhelmingly towards people of color, people who are black.
So I will discern your intent by the impact. If the impact is only hitting one group of people.
No, what I'm saying is that I think the impact is important. And I just want to say also, it was McCluskey v. Kemp, which is another lawsuit, which is the reason why people can't use impact in terms of legal cases, in terms of why that is discrimination. That was actual case that took place. That in order for you to determine discrimination, it has to be based on intent, not based on impact.
I understand that's how our laws are written, and I don't think our laws are always just.
No,
our
they're
laws
not.
Protect the people who have done wrong and do not promote justice. So I'm going to agree with you that from a legal standpoint,
that's why we need reparations.
Can't do that, but reparations has got to go above legal and say, let's do something different here.
Well, that's why we need reparations.
Can I ask a question?
No.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right.
Yeah.
No.
My question to you is, what does reparations look like? Are you talking about a check cut? Are you talking about access? What are you talking about?
Well, in this proposal, what they're talking about,
it's a study.
Well, it's a study, but from my understanding, they want to mirror it like they did with Evanston, Illinois.
Yeah.
So Evanston, Illinois basically took the marijuana tax. It took 3% for the marijuana tax. They gave housing grants. Now, if I have my druthers, I think the federal government should be based on 2 things. I think the 3 things. I think it should be based on money. I think it should be based on land. And I think it should be based on industry. from a federal standpoint. I think locally what's gonna happen that's gonna be more realistic because our budgets are smaller, it's a little bit tighter, is gonna be based on housing grants. So I think that's what they've done in Evanston, Illinois. I think that's what we should do in the city of Detroit as well. And so that's what I think was very important, because that's the best way in order for us to be able to generate wealth is through housing. And for Black folks to be able to have access to housing, and I think we all saw that report where you saw over 90,000 people in the city of Detroit right now living in substandard housing. So I think that is one of the ways in which we can address that overall.
So is it a grant and a land bank home, or is it just a grant?
From my understanding, it's just a grant.
Right, so where will those,
But
how
that's
will
what the
those
study is
grants-
for. It could change.
Right.
It could change.
So-
That's how it is in Evanston, Illinois, is a grant.
And this
but that
will
could
be,
change.
and this will be a task force of the council. So my
Right.
question to you is, what's number one on your agenda if you make it to the council table next year?
Well, if I'm so fortunate enough to make it to the council, to the table, one of the first things, I have a couple of things, but I think one of the first things that I want to do is I want to make sure that we get as many people vaccinated as we possibly can. I think that's the first thing we need to do so that we can not only open up the economy, so that we keep people safe. Because we all have loved ones who we've lost. We all go home to that table where our loved ones sat, where our brother or our sister who lost their life, and those who are still alive, who are long haulers, who now have to deal with the mental health issues they have because of COVID. So that's the first thing I think we need to do. The second thing I think we need to do is we need to address the issue of crime. I think what we need to do is a couple things. One, we need to have more hospital violence intervention programs. So that's basically where we have wraparound services in the hospital, because if you are you're a gunshot victim, you're 50% more likely to be a gunshot perpetrator when you get out of the hospital. So there's cognitive behavioral therapy as well. They have that with DLive now. I think Mr. Winans runs that, so I want to kind of duplicate that and replicate that throughout the city. I think having more violence interrupters as well, so using data to find out people who are more likely to commit crimes, who have commit crimes, and we have intervention programs with them. So that's people from the ecumenical, the church community, people from the neighborhood, people who have mental health experience, people right here who are coming from Eastside Community Network, who could come in and intervene with these young men and young women. That's something that they've done with a ceasefire program in Oakland. It's cut down violence by 40%. So those are things that I think we should do, as well as I want to have a pilot program in the high crime areas to have police officers walking the beat again. I think that's something that's important actually out there in the community.
How do you feel about surveillance? We have ShotSpotter, we got the Green Light program.
I support ShotSpotter. I do not support facial recognition technology.
Okay.
I think that according to the National Institute of Standards and Technology, Black people and our Asian brothers and sisters are 100 times more likely to be wrongfully identified. I think in a country where Black people are 7 times more likely to be wrongfully convicted for murder, and 12 times more likely, 50% more likely to be innocent when on trial, and 12 times more likely to be wrongfully convicted for a drug crime. We can't be wrongfully locking up Black people.
Give us your reasoning. I'm sorry, Donna, really quick. Give us your reasoning behind supporting ShotSpotter, because there's also been some issues with that.
Right.
And we just spent a whole lot of money on that.
I think with ShotSpotter has been the success rate for ShotSpotter has been much higher in terms of being able to use that technology to be able to find out where people are committing crimes and hold them to justice. I think they have a much better record than facial recognition technology.
Okay. All right. I want to invite Hakeem up because he had a question.
Yes, I had two because you kept talking, so I was like, oh, dang.
No, it's okay. Go ahead.
So I appreciate you so much. And congratulations, too, for the ballot.
Thank you. I appreciate that,
future
sir.
advancements. My first question would be, for reparations going back. I'm a big advocate because I am a poet. Well, Hakeem, the people's poet.
Okay.
And I believe to be for the people, by the people, and if you do right unto your people, the people gonna do right for you.
Absolutely.
And I feel like access is one thing, but what about sustainability? Is there sustainability in reparations, and not just access? And then my second question is, in crime, I feel like
Stop right there, because that is an amazing question. Let's spend some time on that first question, because I think we see sometimes reparations as a transactional thing, like this one-time thing, when it needs to be perhaps very systemic and institutionalized and sustained. And so stay at the mic, because we want you to get to your second question, but I want to allow him time to answer that first question, because that's a great question.
Look, but before I begin, can we just give Hakeem a round of applause, man? All things he done. the young man, the poet, I think that's phenomenal. I think that's an excellent question that you asked. And I think that's why we want to attach that to the marijuana tax policy, because from the money that we're going to generate.
Uh-oh. Yeah, take down this mic. We're having some technical difficulties.
Wait, I think I'm back on. Am I back on?
My mic.
Yeah. So I think that, no, thank you. So I think that's going to be sustainability, because that's important. We want to continue to keep that to be sustainable. We don't want this to be a one-time payment. It's not going to be a one-time payment. It's going to be attached to the marijuana money and revenue that we have there, just like they had in Evanston, Illinois. So as long as that business is going to be there, once we finally get that up and running and online, recreationally, I think that money will go towards reparations, and that's how we want to keep that sustainability. And I think over time, there will be ways in which we can add to that as well.
Just from my, maybe my age is showing, but when you said the tax dollars from marijuana will go into the reparations for the
a portion
citizens?
of it, 3%.
Okay. And then secondly, well, dang, that goes into like households and income, like based upon gentrification that is flowing throughout the city. Like, what about the homeowners that are going to be like that are been living there for 10, 15 years? Like my grandma stayed on Van Dyke in Gratiot right there, so on Grinnell. So it's like, what about those family members that are, moving, getting pushed out of their homes?
Well, listen, I think what we need to do is we need to do more for those who stayed. I think it's good that we having people coming to the city. We want to be welcoming city and open city to everyone that comes in. But I think we want to do more for those who stayed. And what I want to do when I'm in city council is I actually want to have a fund that's designed in order to give the money for people who stayed here through the hard times. Because you got a lot of people who stayed here through the hard times, through the rough times, and we should keep them, and we should put them in first in mind. I also think we need to make sure that with the proposal in funds, $6,000 that is supposed to be for, say that is supposed to be for keeping people in their homes. I think that's something that's very important as well. We also need to make sure that we do a better job with the land bank as making sure that people who are actually live next to those properties get those properties, are first in line to get those properties. Yes. I also think we need to do a better job of working with community land trusts or community land cooperatives, well, starting community land cooperatives first, and then working with them as well, having a partnership with them so they can have access to that land and so they can build those lands. And I think that would be a better way to make sure that people in the city, the residents, the neighborhoods actually get those properties first. Because right now what you have is you have a lot of real estate and raw corporations that are getting those properties first and buying them from, some from out of the city, some from even out the state, some from out the country. And so I think that's something that we need to change. That's something I look forward to working with my colleagues in the administration on.
This is my last one. I'm getting out your hair.
I mean, it's up to you.
I'm a big advocate too for crime. Like you know what I'm saying, like lowering that crime down in the city. I'm from the East Side, born and raised on the Red Zone. I went to Denby High School.
Oh, okay.
And graduated from Michigan State too as a journalist. So maybe my questions are different. But this last question is. In crime, do you believe in bringing the police back to the community and making them live in the community so they can also be community residents?
Residency.
I think what you're referring to is residency, and the question is absolutely. I think that's something that's vital. And before I was a city council person, I was a state rep and a state senator. And this is something that I advocated for heavily.
Because it's a fight in Lansing. It's
Is it
ahead.
absolute though? Like, I know the law says that you cannot require, and I also know that the proposed changes to the city charter sought to incentivize living in the neighborhood. Mm-hmm. Is there a way to incentivize if you cannot mandate, and is there a role for city council in creating those incentives?
Well, listen, I think there's a role to incentivize. I just personally think without mandates, it's not going to work. And I think that the police, you don't get any experience anywhere in the world like you get as a Detroit police officer, okay? And when you graduate from the police department, the recruitment from outside the city and outside the state is intense. The minute you graduate, so you could go anywhere where they have better pay, you get better benefits. We know that after the bankruptcy, retirees, healthcare, I think Detroit police was cut. City workers was eliminated. Detroit police was cut. Have their pensions they got a little bit back, but you get better pensions. Well, what you talk about police. Right. That's what I said. I was talking about they cut it. But you have city workers that got eliminated totally. Yes, that's what I'm trying to say. City workers got eliminated totally. Police and fire, they got cut. So, and I was just talking to a firefighter. He said some of that got back. So you get better benefits, you get better pay. So if you're going to mandate,
Hold on, we lost your audio. 1 second. We got to make sure that we can hear you.
You hear me?
There we go.
If not, I can talk louder.
No, we need you. We need you.
Okay. I just want to make sure.
Yeah.
I use my outside voice. So yeah. So it's intense. Now Detroit is different because Detroit is one of the few train facilities where you actually get paid to go through it. So I think that for me, if you're really seriously talking about people living in the city of Detroit that are police officers, you're going to have to require that. That's a state policy that they went up in Lansing in 1999 because police officers and firefighters didn't want to live in the city anymore. They encouraged their lawmakers to get rid of that. So I think that's something that's important. As a city council member, what I want to do is I want to use my office, particularly when we're talking about the issue of police reform post George Floyd. I think that it's absolutely vital that we talk about reparations. I think that duty to intervene is good. I think that using our local policy to get rid of qualified immunity is good. It needs to happen. But I definitely think that we need to have police. You cannot have community policing if police officers don't live in the community.
Right. So what about
the
police
incentives?
budget?
Incentives is good too. No, I'm not saying incentives are good. I just think that I think you should go hand in hand.
Well,
I don't think you should be either or. I think you should be both.
Well, but if you can't, we're not going to be able to change residency laws without the cooperation of the state.
Right.
Well, so given
I would say
that,
you got to fight on two fronts.
Right, but within our control
incentives.
right now, we could do things like create affordable housing and access our housing subsidies for people who choose to live in the city. And I've seen that's what other people have done and talked about. And I guess my question is, as a city council person and an at-large city council person, is that something you would be willing to fight for?
Sure.
Creating those incentives
Sure.
and redirecting the money. And the other thing is doing more to prepare young people to become police officers from this community. We have a police cadets program that runs through the Detroit Employment Solutions Corporation, and they do everything but police work. They're out there gardening, and they go to senior citizens' homes, they help the senior citizens, and I'm serious, but it's like, if I want you to become a police officer, there's nothing else wrong with any of that. My mother is in a rehab center right now, and I'm so glad that there are people who are helping people in those centers. But my point is, if you want to be a police officer, exposing young people to that career and treating them, giving internships and creating that pathway from high school seems to make sense to me.
Sure. I agree.
All right. Does that make sense to you? Makes perfect sense. All right. Well, I want to thank you for joining us. And Hakeem, we're going to have you back on our show as a guest host because you're great.
Since we're really quick, since we're on the topic, yes. What's some great questions? Since we're on the topic of police, there were calls last year during the Black Lives Matter protests to redistribute budget dollars from police into, city services, human services, and things of that sort. Where do you stand on the city's budget allocation for police, its provision for lawsuits that come against police? Is that something that you are considering looking at and maybe redistributing?
Well, we defund a lot of things. Mental health care, social services, housing services, education. I think that if you wanted to take some money and you want to reallocate it towards mental health services, I don't see anything wrong with that. I think if you want to take, thank you, I appreciate that. I think if you wanted to take some of that money and you wanted to and let me say this too, I also think that we ask police officers to do entirely too much. I think we need to have more crisis intervention teams. I think that if your child is having a mental health episode, you don't need a gun toter to show up for that. I think we need mental health professionals to show up for that. And so I have no problem doing that. I have no problem refunding mental health. I have no problem funding for social services and things of that nature. I think that's a good thing overall. We're not going to be able to wrest our way out of this problem. We're not going to be able to wrest away poverty. So I think that we need to have crisis intervention teams like they have in other parts of the country. And so I think that that's a good thing. And let me say this too. I think that we need police. I think we want police in high crime areas. But I also think that we're going to have to think holistically in terms about how we deal with the issue of crime. Whenever you carry a hammer, every problem is a nail. And so I think that is not the way in which we could do things. We cannot arrest everybody or arrest our way out of every problem. I think we're going to have more investment in our mental health facilities. And that's why I think it's important for us to have more recreational centers too. So our children have somewhere to play. Look, we have really good, smart kids. They just don't have an avenue in which to express that talent. And so I think that if we have more recreational centers in the neighborhood, we could be able to do that.
All right. Coleman A. Young, candidate for the LRC at City Council. You all give him a hand.
So just one final question.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
You're going to work with us when you are elected to City Council. Will you work with our organization on this and other solutions?
Well, absolutely, I'm going to work with the East Side community. Look, let me just say this real quick before look. She's something else right there. Look. I started here. I would not be where I am today if it were not for the East Side Community Network. When I first started knocking doors, when I first started talking to people, when I first started going out here. So I feel like this campaign here, this feels like full circle. I feel like I'm amongst family. So I love you, I appreciate you. Of course I'll work with you, but you gotta make sure that you have me on this podcast again.
Oh, we will.
This can't be the last time.
We'll have you in the studio. Where can the people catch you tonight? Where are you watching the results?
Look, I'm gonna be at 6001 Cass. That's WeWork over there on Cass. So love to have you come by. Can't wait to see you guys. I'm excited. Thank you so much for this opportunity and everything that you guys do. I just want to say this really quickly too. For all the people that you've helped, for all the people you helped get off their feet, for all the people you helped with jobs, opportunities, for all the environmental things that you've done with the floods and everything that's going on. I just want to say you guys are a pillar of the community. When we talk about 1,000 points of light, we talk about Detroit's finest and excellent. We are talking about the people of the East Side Community Network. Thank you, love you, appreciate you. God bless you.
Thank you. All right. What an amazing.
All right. All right. Now we are joined by the Queen.
The Queen of the East Side.
Okay,
the Director of Community Engagement and MACC Development, Edythe Ford. Can you guys give it up for Edythe Ford?
Hello, hello, hello. The Queen of the East Side is here.
Edythe Ford, tell us how satisfied you are with your elected officials and their understanding and response to your needs and concerns as an advocate and Detroit resident.
I'm very unsatisfied, not with my council person in District 5, because Mary is very responsive. I am an on-the-ground community organizer. Every 3 months, I visit 2,167 houses in my immediate neighborhood. And last year, twice, I did a total of 42,000 houses canvassing on the East Side. And I believe that our candidates and our elected officials need to be on our porches, because I work on the principle that the people are on the top of the pyramid. What they say go. What they need is what we need to do. For example, when we opened the Commons, instead of paying $70,000 to somebody to decide how that building was going to be done, what was going to be in it, we had meetings with our neighbors and asked them, what do you want in your community? We live in our neighborhood, so we do things with our neighbors, not to our neighbors. And we have a fine community neighbor center, the Commons on McILwain, where we have something nice to treat our neighbors and our people on the East Side with the dignity that they deserve. no matter what their problems are, no matter when they walk in the door. Just like this Stoudemire Center. You see this? We all work together as organizations now. And we're working together to give you what you need and what you want. And that's what our elected officials should do. Because just like this lady from Ravendale said, they work for us. When we get grants, that is not a gift. They are giving us our money back. And I want to tell our people out here that go, oh, I don't pay taxes, I'm on SSI. I'm going to tell you what I tell each and every one of them when they sit in front of my face and I'm doing their property tax exemption or helping them with something. Oh, yeah, you pay taxes. You pay sale taxes. You rent, you're paying property tax. Everybody pays taxes. And no, I don't care if you got 2 pennies to rub together. You're deserving of being treated with dignity, to be told the truth, and to be transparent.
Edythe, I want to ask you this question. A lot of the candidates have come through tonight and talked about the expectation of low voter turnout. And you are a woman and an organizer that I know that hits the streets almost every day talking to folks. What are you seeing when you are asking people about their voter intentions? And just like tonight, this is a major election for the city of Detroit. This is a nice little crowd, but it should be full. And we had candidates come through, people that will be responsible and accountable to them. What are you hearing as you go door to door?
People feel hopeless and that nobody is really on their side. And our young people don't understand the process. Like the questions or who they blame for things, they don't understand that person is not the fault. It's the state, it's the mayor, it's the city council. One of the things that I am desiring to be brought back in our public schools or even at our agencies here, our organizations on the east side, we need to reinstitute civics in school. Yeah. When we were in elementary, yes, we had civics from elementary to high school. It was 2 things you wanted, your driver's license and your voting card. Like we had them every semester, and at the end of the year, when you were in elementary school, you went to go see the city council in action. It wasn't just talk. You went with your mama to vote. Your mama sent you with the lady down the street that couldn't read so you could fill out her ballot. We were involved in that process as children. So when we became adults, we knew that that was our duty. And what's hurting us more that people don't understand is not the presidential election. Many things the president puts in place may not even come into fruition. It could be decided that we're not going to do this for the next president. What hurts us is our local elections. From my job at Wayne State, working with the higher level executives there in fundraising, one of the things that the west side of the state wanted to knock Detroit down. Then you also had Brooks Patterson in Oakland County. So we did not understand we have to get the people we want in our state legislature, on the Senate and in the House of, and in the House, the representatives, because what they did is the west side of the state became controlling of our state Senate. So now we cannot get anything passed.
The Detroit
but
delegation.
You know, but
Go
one
ahead.
of the challenges for me is we run for office on complaint.
Yes.
When people run for office, they give a litany of everything that's wrong with the city and these politicians and who they're running against. They run with the put downs and everything like that. We're not running on vision and we're not running on hope. And if the people are hopeless, how do we give them hope? Hope is what causes people to change. Nobody changes without hope. Right. But we aren't ever invested in that. Instead, we just say, well, you know what, if I can just knock the other person down far enough, I can just walk right on over them and I'll win. And the reality is that what ends up happening is there are fragile voters, people who might vote, but who get discouraged because all they hear is complaint and they just think things are bad and they're always going to be that bad. I'm powerless, nobody cares. Why vote? So I'm wondering, what role do organizations like ours play in generating that vision and generating the hope and then sending that to the elected officials and stop waiting on them to figure it out? What role can we play?
A lot of our problems I see on Facebook. We got people that are my age on there downing people that don't go vote. I'm a risk taker and a salesperson and a historian. Those are my three professions. When my people don't show up for something, I don't look at them and say what's wrong. I already know what's wrong. You got systematic oppression, like on you for over 450 years. And you gotta fight that and keep a roof over your head and your lights and gas on. It's my job to sell you that hope. But the truth, and we got people that are leaders in our community on Facebook bashing people that don't vote. In what world can we bash somebody but then get them to do what we think is best for them?
Exactly.
And that needs to stop.
You know, if the one I hate the most is, you know, Harriet Tubman said more slaves would have been freed if they knew they were slaves, as if not knowing that you were slaves or whatever was the problem. As if it was not slavery and the institutions that kept slavery in place that were the problem. As if you did not have all of these laws that kept people, fugitive slave laws, and you didn't have the, what do they call the police that were going around and rounding people up, slave patrols, rounding people up. But we blame the people for the slave patrols, and we blame the people for all of it. And my question is, what role do we play in selling hope? Because I know the Commons sells hope to people. You use the Commons as a means of giving people a different expectation for their lives. But in politics, how do we translate that?
Well, in politics, we got to do the same. We got to go to their porches. We got to ask them what they want and get them to come and fight with us. And you know how you do that? This is what I learned in 6 years. Jesus organized, and so do I. And the way I do it is I take this skill I learned from my Southern grandparents. I'm gonna feed you, I'm gonna love you, I'm gonna try to take care of your problems. Then I'm gonna call you and say, come on with me and let's go vote. I'm gonna educate you when you say the wrong thing. I'm not gonna put you down. I'm gonna say, hey, let me explain this. Each one of us, one at a time, have to go to neighbor. And guess what? We can't talk about we ain't gonna talk to the guys at the gas station. Because guess what? 3 of them riding around right now getting my seniors back and forth so they can vote because their ballots didn't show up in the mail. We think we too good to talk to people. The first people I talk to is the people don't nobody want to talk to. Because guess what? They loyal. That's where I got the nickname Queen of the East Side. We all got to stop acting like we're better than that. The presidential campaign, an organizer that helped people get elected came in my office and he let me know. A lot of people said they don't come to the East Side or they're not going to knock on the door. We got a standard in our neighborhood. If you don't come like to ECN or MACC Development or a church in this area, we're not voting for you.
Right. I also hope that we look at policies. I hope we also look at vision. I hope we also throw some things out there into the atmosphere that people want to catch and see happen. So, Edythe, partner, queen, I want to thank you for being here.
Thank you.
I just want to say, you could not have a better partner in this work than you.
Oh, no, you guys are my partner. You guys have really blew my game up.
Committee.
All right.
Yeah.
All right.
Clap it up for Edythe Ford, the Queen of the East Side.
We have been joined.
I don't know why he back there.
You know, back in the day when somebody calls you a storyteller, it was not a compliment. I just want you to remember that.
Thinking he could eat.
Remember when people used to say you were telling stories? Come on, Eric, come on. There used to be a time when people would say, no, you're telling stories, and they were saying you weren't telling the truth.
So we have the chief storyteller.
We have been joined by a man who is really committed to telling the truth about the city of Detroit. changing the whole concept for me of what a storyteller is.
The chief storyteller for the city of Detroit, Eric Thomas. Y'all give him a hand. This is my brother, y'all.
First of all, can we clap it up for Eric's new glasses, though?
Okay.
He gave us a preview
Y'all
on
know.
Facebook, but I
Y'all
wasn't
know.
ready for those.
Y'all
okay?
know. And listen, we on camera. Stand up and turn around for the people. We on camera. Y'all check him out. Y'all check how smooth he is. Don't hate.
He is.
Oh, man.
They say they be dressing in Detroit, so I couldn't show up.
Well, you know. I mean, with Detroit raised Craig Strong, so you know we dress.
Well, I just saw him today.
What did he have on?
You know,
Purple?
a mink.
A mink? Oh. Already?
You know how it goes.
Eric Thomas, chief storyteller for the city of Detroit. What exactly are you up to? Because there's still, you even wrote an op-ed, but I think the question is still out there. What is Eric doing? Ain't nobody seen Eric. We don't know what he's up to. What is he doing?
I try to stay out the way and focus on the residents, right? So if you got a chance to look at Stories from Detroit on Instagram or theneighborhoods.org, the website, which we are currently in the middle of a revamp, but there are lots of stories there. And now we're back to dropping a bunch of videos and all that kind of stuff because I take it way too seriously. I'm just trying to show people instead of tell people how great Detroit is. You know, it's like a lot of people are just like, don't you guys know good things are happening here? I'm just trying to show how great Detroiters are at the highest possible quality, which is important.
So we talked about hope. Just before you got up here when you were trying to sneak and get your food, we talked about hope. And we talked about hope. I'm wondering what role your position plays in helping to create hope in the citizens of the city of Detroit. What do you think the stories are, the narrative around hope?
You know, so there's levels to this. I think oftentimes when you tell stories, particularly about black people, specifically about black people, it's always steeped in trauma and sadness. There's always a trauma caveat.
Or a deficit-based frame.
Yeah, it's always
It's always a deficit.
even though he had half a parent and is on crack, he's now the executive of Pepsi. It's can he just be the executive of Pepsi and we just work through the rest of that?
Yeah.
And so when we tell stories, I try to tell it from a framing of joy.
Yeah.
Right? If we just rooted in joy, that's not saying bad things didn't happen. Right? And we do put that in a story. If something bad happened, that's in there, but it can't be the whole framing. They spend so much time on the sad part, the last 10% is for and he made it out.
Yeah.
Or the idea that people are successful despite Detroit instead of because of Detroit. He lives in Detroit and all this bad stuff happened to him, but then he started a business. It's I know so many Detroiters that are business owners. I know so many Detroiters that are just people who have families who are incredible human beings that don't need to be we shouldn't have to make excuses for the people here. They're incredible. So I try to think about that. So if you view our stories, you should see yourself in those stories. And if somebody is successful or going through something you're going through, you should be able to see yourself on the other side.
Right, but you first became a public personality when you wrote an article.
Oh, Jesus.
You remember, does anybody know the article? Why I Hate Detroit. And in this article, you did not speak of hope. You wanted to build visibility to the challenges that people face. Not as a way of excusing or anything like that, but because you felt as though the challenges real Detroiters faced were not being acknowledged in the ecosphere. And somehow people felt seen.
I was just mad as hell. You know when you see people just do something that you was already doing but getting all the credit for it, and you're just what is that? Or when it looks like something that was originally for you is now for somebody else all of a sudden. That's just kind of where I was at. And so I wrote Why I Hate Detroit because I feel like I have not met a Detroiter that's lived in Detroit longer than 10 years who hasn't said it at least once. You hit a pothole, mess up your axle, you wake up, your catalytic converter is gone or whatever. You be like, man, I hate this town. And one day, everybody was like, oh, Detroit is super, it slaps, it's super great. And I would be on a panel, I'd be like, man, I hate this freaking town. And they would be like, how could you say that? I've been here for 2 weeks and nothing bad has ever happened to me. I'd be like, what, bro? So I wrote that article just to forward it to people. Wasn't nobody looking at me. I had like 500 followers. I just was like, I'm gonna forward this to anybody who asks me. And it went crazy. And I think it's because it just resonated with an audience who were not being heard.
Right. And they're still not really being heard.
No.
And so my question is, how can the Storyteller of Detroit make those people heard, make their pain heard? Because everything's either all great or it's all bad, but you have people who are like great people who are still struggling. And you can tell the story of my greatness, but don't make my struggle invisible, because now everybody has to be happy. I'm sorry. I have to check what this is. My mother.
I know you important. She getting text messages from like the president right now or something.
Go ahead.
My mother is calling me.
Oh, is it? Okay, it's okay. Orlando got me.
Go ahead, answer the question, Erica. I got questions too, but go ahead.
So I think there's like three narratives, right? There's the story that people are telling for suburbanites to make them feel like Detroit is acceptable.
Impalatable.
Right, palatable. There is the trauma narrative of Detroit. That's just like, it's just all trauma.
That reinforces white supremacy.
Well, you know, black people can't exist without them in, opposition to the greater joy. And then there is kind of what I'm trying to do somewhere in the middle, which is show life at grand scale, right? Where I'm not trying to pretend that Detroit isn't what it is, but it's so easy to Google images of Detroit and find abandoned houses. It's so easy to Google stories about Detroit and just find horrible things that I just want to balance it out. That I just want you to be able to Google Detroit and find the beautiful neighborhoods, because like downtown is not the only nice looking place in Detroit, and neither is Indian Village, and neither is West Village, or neither is like Palmer Park. Like, there were places in Brightmoor that are beautiful if you just slow down and look at it. Right? I mean, shoot, if you just walk around Detroit and stop like speeding through it as fast as possible, even going into the houses, there's a lot of beauty. The question is, you see pain and joy when you look, right? When you just hold focus. And so my goal is to hold the focus, to go into the neighborhoods where you may see an abandoned house in the background, but you see a human in the forefront.
Yeah.
Very rarely will you see me just do a video or a story that's just on a place. Because I do not, and this is what gets me in trouble, I don't care about the buildings. I don't care about the antiquities. I don't care about the street signs. I don't even mess with the history that much. I'm gonna let Jemai handle that, right? I am trying to hyper-focus on resident narratives. Everybody from, I think Donna was talking about it with me the other day, from the people who go to work every day to the 19-year-old entrepreneur that started a rapidly growing business. If we hyper-focus on that, the story will be well-rounded. Stop looking for these exceptional cases. I'm so tired of these like talented 10th type stories where it's like, oh, I know I was born in the hood, but then I became the president of Microsoft. It's like, what the heck? Like, that's the most random. What is that?
Yeah.
Right? Even me, I'm a super random story. I like dropped out of college and I'm the chief storyteller. Like, that's cool. I call myself a uniquely Detroit story that's not unique in Detroit. Where in Detroit is a place where you can drop out of college and become the chief storyteller, but it's not rare here.
Yeah.
You meet all of these people in the upper echelons of power who come from all of these different places, from being a drug dealer to just being like an altar boy or whatever. And that is just what Detroit creates. It flattens the distance from the bottom to the top. And so the opportunity to rise is so interesting. And that's just the kind of stuff that I want to talk about, so people just know what the essence of our town is.
Thank you.
I know I get ranty, but I've been ranting at people on the phone.
Yeah, I always think that people don't know how wonderful Detroiters are.
Yeah, they don't know how wonderful Detroiters are.
Ask any Detroiter, if you ask any Detroiter what is the best thing about the city, they will say the people.
If you ask anybody outside of Detroit.
But I'm saying but a lot of policies that get passed because the people have been demonized and not seen. Yeah. A lot of efforts are done to demonize people, and so I think there is an essential significance in lifting up who the people are. And then also making sure that people understand that these are people who are great, who work harder than their suburban neighbors to keep the city alive, because it does take more work to keep their block alive and to keep going here. And I think it's important that that effort and that investment also be counted. I hear people describing Detroiters as freeloaders, as people who are taking things, and it's like some of the hardest working people I know are working here and not getting paid and working and loving strangers' children. And so I appreciate you for telling those stories, and I really look forward to working with you to helping to identify more stories. Like, we got to get our queens of the East Side. We got one right here. I don't know, she's been there.
Hey, I'm about that life. Like, I'm about, like, it's funny that you talk about, I was having a conversation with somebody about the way residents are framed.
Mm-hmm.
There are unintentional consequences of using deficit framing to help people.
Absolutely.
Which is that you start to make people believe that the entire city is like a hopeless maelstrom, right? Like, the minute you hit 8 Mile, you walk in there and it's just like a dust bowl, right? Like, it's just like all kinds of horrible stuff happening to you. And I remember something that shook me to my core. I think it was at an urban consulate, actually. And we were talking.
Shout out to Urban Consulate.
Shout out to Urban Consulate. A young lady, we were talking about Detroit, and I was talking about my experience, typical poor people experiences. And a young lady goes, man, I grew up in Indian Village. I didn't grow up poor. I don't know no poor people. I live in Detroit my entire life. I have no experience with poverty. Yep. And it was one of those things where it's like, oh, true.
That's a story.
There's a middle class.
Yeah.
There's a whole middle class here. There's a whole group of people.
Right, exactly.
So here.
Exactly.
So, but what's happening is there is definitely poverty everywhere, but there's also not poverty near the poverty. When I grew up, I didn't even realize that I could have gone 2 blocks and been in a different kind of environment, that I could have gone somewhere and been like, oh, this could be my house. My view was over Detroit. It was like, I need to go from here to LA. Like, I jumped over the other places to reinvest in my home. Right. I didn't realize I could just move down the street and then invest in the area that I was at, or stay in the area and develop it to grow. Because this idea that Detroit doesn't have anything is so pervasive, it makes you feel like the only way to grow is to go.
Yeah, I think that's important. I think it's also important to say that if you live in Indian Village and you never see poverty, then people are invisible near you.
True.
And I think that the invisibility and the classism that sometimes supersedes even racism in this town allows people to be elected officials and not really connect to the needs of the people and that's why we have people who have been overlooked for so long.
Yeah, buddy.
The beautiful thing is that in those places that person who lived in Indian Village, and I'm not trying to call her out, I'm just saying, because I grew up in Palmer Woods, so who am I to talk? But if
I'm moving in with you.
But what I'm saying is that if
do you have a spare room?
I don't live there.
Okay.
I grew up there. I grew up there and I left. I exited that bubble. But my point is that if you grow up there and you don't see the people there, you need to learn to see your neighbors, and you need to learn that your neighbors that you didn't see are beautiful, and there are people and wonderful things you did not see because you were blinded by your prosperity. And I think you do a great job pulling out those people. I want to thank you for pulling them out. I want to partner with you in pulling out more. And
there's so many.
I think the beautiful tension that I always carry about the city of Detroit and my wide array of experiences and seeing impoverished people being middle, the access that I had is this, and it boils down to this for me. Because of that experience, Detroit for me was never a place I needed to escape.
Right.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And if I think that the way that we can continue to inspire and continue to use our city as an impetus for hope for our young people is exposure, because you cannot dream about what you have never been exposed to. And what you are doing is exposing narratives that a lot of people don't, Detroiters,
right,
a lot of people
inside Detroit
don't see.
But the most exciting thing about Detroit to me are those people who grew up here, went to college, stayed here,
That's
and
right.
are living where they grew up.
That's me, baby.
When I heard Alberta Tinsley Tlaib tell
In the
me
same
she
house.
was living in the same house she was born in, this is a woman who has been a state senator. She has been a city council person, and yet she stayed and she dug in and she invested in her roots. I love it. And that tells me that everybody doesn't feel as though I have to move up to Grosse Pointe or I have to move out to one of these suburbs. I can stay right here and grow and reinvest. We have so many great leaders who've done that. Our own Angela Brown Wilson is right around the block from where she was born, in the house that she grew up in. And when she was working as a second in command, she was one of the top appointees of Mayor Archer, and she stayed. So God bless those who stayed. God bless those who are coming, and God bless you for, and I know I want to say God bless you because I know how much you enjoy that from me.
I'm gonna get kicked out
From
of
the
the
work
city.
that you do. We're going to have you back on Authentically Detroit, Eric. We have one more, I think.
That's
one
my brother.
more
I love my
person.
brother.
Yes.
Can we
and
clap it up
I
for
knew
this
Eric
chief
before he was
storyteller?
Eric, right?
Oh, we've known each other for a long. She knew me back when I had braids, I think.
Yes,
Oh my God,
you
I want to
did.
see the photo of that.
That was the past. I had rectangle glasses.
Oh my goodness.
Different look.
Can we give a hand to Eric Thomas, Chief Storyteller for the city of Detroit? All right, it looks like we're gonna have one more guest. ML Elric wants to join us, and we're trying to get him on the line. But while we do that, we're gonna welcome a representative for Voters Not Politicians to the microphone to tell us about a campaign that they are trying to champion all throughout the state in terms of voting rights. Can you tell us your name and what you're talking?
Yes, my name is Rita Turner Sheeran, and I volunteer with Voters Not Politicians. And I got to know Eastside Community Network through efforts around the new redistricting process that we have. And I wanted to raise awareness that there is a petition going around by people that are opposed to voter expansion. And the petition is called Secure My Vote. And it has another nickname called Freedom to Vote. And I would like to say that it is anything but making it free or easy to vote. And so we are asking citizens not to sign this petition because what it will do, it will overturn the governor's current veto of voter suppression laws that are coming out of Lansing. The majority party that holds both houses in Lansing have put together laws.
In confusing language.
In confusing language. And so many of the polling places are private. They're like churches. You won't be able to vote in those places unless the clerk does fair market rate for the day. There's no donations that can be used in the election process. So a lot of us who come out here and volunteer in the election process will no longer be able to help. So they're making it harder for the clerks to get the resources to run elections.
All right. And so the governor just vetoed a slate of bills a few weeks ago
Yes.
at the NAACP Freedom Fund dinner that included some of those voter suppression bills. And
Correct.
your campaign is to educate people as they go about their lives and are approached by folks who are trying to get signatures to overturn that veto to not sign it.
Yes, because they will make it, they lead you to believe that this will go to a vote of the people on a ballot initiative, and it will not. You will never see it on a ballot. You will sign these pieces of paper, and you will join the crowd of having only 3.4% or roughly maybe no more than 5% of the people saying that they want these laws to be in place, and they do not have the courage to bring them out to the public.
Well, we thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for sharing that information.
you.
And we want, before you go, can you let the folks know how they can get in contact with Voters Not Politicians to become a part of this campaign to help folks be educated about what's happening?
One moment.
One moment. Well, Donna, this has certainly been an amazing 2 hours and 20 minutes that we've spent.
It has. It has.
interviewing.
It's actually we had this dream that we were going to do something and have a watch night party and bring people together rather than being at home. First of all, because we have to come together as a community, and also because it's important that we have this political dialogue, but I had no idea it was going to be this great.
Yeah. Tell us the information.
You can go V as in Victor, vnp.vote/volunteer, and you can help us fight these nefarious laws.
Give the people
Thank
that.
you.
Give them that one more time.
vnp.vote/volunteer.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thanks
so
so
much.
much, Donna.
All right, so there is so much more to come tonight. We got performances, we got spoken word, we got stand-up comedy, but that's going to conclude this live broadcast of the Authentically Detroit podcast. We thank you all so much for rocking with us for 2 hours and 20 minutes. We will see you next time, and we want you to catch the wave.